The mid-July heat in Houston was stifling, the concrete parking lot shimmering with waves of heat. Inside LoneStar Engineering's main conference room, the air conditioning blasted at full capacity, yet the atmosphere remained heavy as dozens of eyes fixed on one person, Talia Monroe. Monday morning meetings were usually just for progress reports. Still, today, Brent Calloway, head of engineering, abruptly stood up in the middle of the long table, turned on his phone camera, and began live streaming. His voice carried through the room, tinged with mockery. Offshore rig number 7 has been dead for over half a year. Anyone who can fix it in 5 days gets a $350,000 annual contract. And if that person is Talia Monroe, I'll marry her. Laughter and whistles erupted from the engineers at the end of the table. Some ducked their faces behind laptops to hide their grins, and others discreetly filmed the scene on their phones. Across from him, Talia sat with her hands on the wooden table, eyes locked on Brent. In a flash, she recalled the times she'd been called the street mechanic who got lucky in a big company, the whispers that she must have been given special treatment for certain reasons. Brent's remark wasn't just a joke, but a strike at her dignity. She rose, pushing her chair back. Her voice was low and steady. I'll take it, not for you because this job needs to be done. 5 days. The room fell silent for a moment before murmurs swelled again. Brent smirked, ending the live stream, but his eyes still glinted with challenge. Her heart pounded when Talia sat back down, but her face remained calm. She didn't yet know that this nod would pull her into a battle against one man and an entire system operating quietly in the shadows. It took less than an hour for Brent's live stream to be clipped, set to parody music, and spread across LoneStar Engineering's internal network. In the Oil Kings Engineering group chat, Talia's photo was photoshopped with a bridal veil, standing next to Brent in a tuxedo, under the caption, "High-pressure marriage, 5-day countdown." A few junior engineers glanced at Talia in the workshop and whispered loud enough for her to hear snippets like, "Classic move to get ahead," and just special treatment, not skill. Every step left little embers behind, not enough to burst into flames, but hot enough to slowly burn her patience. Brent sat in his glass office on the 3rd floor, with a direct view of the shop floor. Occasionally, he would sip his coffee and smile smugly when he saw Talia leaning over the screen to review the rig's design plans. To Brent, this was a power game where people from ordinary backgrounds like hers existed only to prove the superiority of him and his kind. Talia didn't retaliate. She quietly saved every message and meme sent to her, but at the same time she focused on studying the technical documents for offshore rig number 7. That night, when everyone had left, Talia stayed in front of the monitor, the blue glow of the CAD schematics reflected in her eyes. She knew the next 5 days wouldn't just test her technical skills, they would be a fight to protect her real worth in an environment where mockery could cut sharper than a blade. The following afternoon, when Talia arrived at her 5th-floor apartment in Houston's 3rd Ward, she found her 4-year-old son Malik curled up on the sofa, eyes red. His backpack was still on his shoulders, and his phone was on the table. "What happened, son?" Talia asked, her voice dropping. Malik was silent for a few seconds before blurting out, "Some kids at school. They played your clip right before me. They said you must marry the boss to get a good job. One of them called you a gold digger in coveralls." A hot surge rose in Talia's chest. She could take that not because they insulted her, but because they made Malik ashamed of his mother. She sat down beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Listen to me. I don't need to marry anyone to prove I'm good. I've stood alone my whole life, and will show them that. Not just for them, but for you." Malik looked at her, his eyes still wet but a little steadier. "I believe you, but they'll play dirty, won't they?" Talia pressed her lips together and gave a slight nod. "Maybe. But remember this, we don't fight in the mud. We win with the truth." After Malik was asleep that night, Talia opened her laptop and pulled up the technical file for rig number 7. On the screen, the diagram of its components unfolded like a metallic and pressurized labyrinth. One thought echoed in her head. If someone killed this machine on purpose, I'm going to find out. Near midnight, the computer screen still glowed in the small kitchen. Talia's eyes drifted to a photo on the wall. Her husband, Derek Monroe, in an orange safety suit, standing on a rig deck at sea, smiling under the sunset. 3 years ago, Derek died in an explosion on a Gulf of Mexico rig. The official report called it an unforeseen technical failure, But Talia knew the truth. The maintenance crew had ignored critical warnings under cost-cutting pressure. Derek had told her the night before his final shift. Just one faulty pressure valve, and the whole rig's a ticking bomb. The day she got the news, Talia stood before his closed casket, gripping Malik's small hand, and swore to herself, no one else would die from negligence or personal schemes. Now mixed with Brent's taunt, that memory forged a cold determination. For Talia, fixing offshore rig number 7 wasn't just about a career opportunity or answering an insult. It was a fight to prevent another Derek from being lost to careless hands. She shut the laptop and leaned back in her chair. At that moment, she realized that she was ready to fix the rig and dig down to the truth buried beneath it. 2 days later, Talia was granted clearance to the maintenance yard at Galveston Port to inspect offshore rig number 7-inch person. Waves slapped the pier, mingling with the metallic clank of cranes. The rig loomed, its steel frame rusted with salt, standing still like a chained beast. Wearing protective gear, she opened the main control panel. The scent of burnt oil mixed with sea salt rose familiar yet acrid. Immediately, she noticed the hydraulic pressure filter had been replaced with a cheaper, unauthorized type. Further inspection revealed the ECU control chip on the circuit board had been recently and sloppily resoldered, and the central hydraulic hose bore an extended, deliberate-looking cut. These 3 components were the system's lifeblood. Failure in any of them could halt operations for months. Talia took photos, made notes, and then called Luis Ortega, a legendary retired LoneStar engineer. One glance over a video call, and Luis confirmed, "This isn't wear and tear. Somebody wanted this beast dead." Hearing that, Talia felt the sea breeze turn colder. Brent's challenge wasn't random if this was deliberate sabotage. Someone had laid a trap and she'd walked right into it. The next morning, as soon as Talia walked into the workshop, the air was different. Groups of young engineers huddled over glowing phones. She caught whispers. Heard Talia got the green light from the execs already. Bet someone in HR's backing her. In the internal group chat, Brent posted a leaked message. "Congrats to Talia in advance. Word is, whether she fixes it or not, the contract's hers." No. A blurry photo of Talia video calling Luis was captioned. "Private consultant for the Lady Mechanic Company. Funded." The workshop's chatter turned from mockery to questioning her integrity. Knowing she couldn't fight this alone, Talia contacted Dr. Renee Caldwell, an industrial sabotage investigator who had helped major energy companies expose insiders. Renee agreed to meet and review the evidence Talia had gathered. Meanwhile, Malik, with the resourcefulness of a 4-year-old, offered, "I've got a friend whose dad works in IT at your company. I can ask him to find the real messages from Brent's group." Talia looked at her son, half worried, half proud. She knew the battle had opened on 2 fronts, one on the oil-stained shop floor, and the other in the battlefield of rumors and digital data. A week later, in a discreetly rented meeting room on Houston's outskirts, Talia, Renee, and Luis sat around a table, the projector displaying charts and printed emails. Renee pointed to a graph. "I analyzed LoneStar's maintenance and project outcomes over the past 4 years. Here's the pattern. 11 projects led by female engineers or engineers of color experienced unforeseen technical failures and were shelved indefinitely." "That," Luis frowned. "And the projects led by white male engineers?" Renee switched the slide. "No major failures. In fact, after each failure from the other group, Brent or someone in his circle got a bigger project and a promotion." Talia's hands clenched, her heart racing. The picture was becoming clear. The Rig 7 incident was just one link in a chain of systematic sabotage to preserve a group's grip on power. Malik sent over a zipped file he'd obtained via his friend's internal messages between Brent and the parts warehouse manager, discussing testing out cheaper components to speed up the breakdown. The room grew heavy. Renee looked directly at Talia. "If you just fix the rig, they'll sabotage it again. We need to hit the system itself, fix the rig, and expose the entire mechanism." "Obluque." Talia nodded, knowing this fight was no longer just about reclaiming her dignity, but about unmasking a power structure built on burying talent like hers. On a stifling Houston night, the Galveston maintenance yard was down to the hum of industrial fans and the clink of metal. Talia and Luis crouched beside Rig 7, checking the final replacements. Sweat ran down her spine, but every bolt and hose was tightened to spec, a flawless mechanical symphony. Meanwhile, Renee was surrounded by stacks of documents and 3 open laptops in the temporary office. She was compiling the investigative report, inserting photos of the swapped parts, a diagram linking Brent to failed projects, and a cut video from Luis's hidden camera, showing a parts technician swapping the hydraulic filter. Talia entered, pulling off her gloves, and sat opposite Renee. "Tomorrow, I'll show them how this rig runs. And you will show them why it ever died," Renee replied firmly. At home, Malik sat at the dining table, sorting all the internal messages he'd pulled, arranging them chronologically. He sent his mother a folder titled, "The Truth, Final." Late that night, Talia came home to find her son still awake. "If you win tomorrow, will everything change? If I win tomorrow, it won't just be us. Many people will finally get the chances they've deserved all along." She smiled, though her eyes held a fierce hope and resolve. Outside, the city lay in darkness. But for Talia, tomorrow's dawn would be the light that revealed both the rig and the shadows behind it. The next morning, LoneStar Engineering's main auditorium was packed. Employees from multiple departments had come, some live streaming, waiting for what they thought would be Talia's public failure. On stage, Brent Calloway wore a deep blue suit and a smug smile, holding a microphone. "We're all eager to see if Miss Monroe here can resurrect offshore rig number 7. Scattered chuckles rippled through the crowd. Talia didn't respond, only signaling Luis to project a live feed from Galveston. The camera zoomed in on the rig's components, all pressure, temperature, and RPM readings in the green. Talia stepped up to the mic. "Before we start it up, I want everyone to see why it stopped in the first place." The lights dimmed, and the screen switched to Renee's edited video. The parts tech swapping in a substandard hydraulic filter, a sloppily resoldered control chip, and a flowchart of emails between Brent and the warehouse manager discussing speeding up the breakdown. The whispers gave way to a heavy silence. Brent's face paled, his voice stammering. This is fabricated." Renee stood from the audience, her voice clear. "All data verified. And here's a 4-year record showing a systematic sabotage pattern targeting female and minority engineers." Luis signaled the port technician to start the rig. The deep engine rumble filled the hall, steady and strong. All readings glowed green. The auditorium erupted in cheers from those who had doubted Talia. At that moment, CEO Marvin Harlan walked in, his face stern. Brent Calloway, Jake Silva, and all involved HR. Now, as he was escorted out, Brent glanced back, forcing a grin. "The marriage offer still stands, Talia." She met his eyes. "I only marry respect. And you don't have it." Applause thundered across the hall. 2 weeks after Engine Day, LoneStar Engineering felt transformed. The memes and snide whispers had vanished from internal chats. In their place, an email from leadership read, "Appointment. Talia Monroe as Director of Engineering Innovation. Tasked with upgrading maintenance procedures, implementing transparency safeguards, and ensuring equal opportunity for all engineers." Doe. Renee Caldwell was brought on as special advisor to the internal investigation, and Luis Ortega officially returned as a trainer for new technicians. Brent, Jake, and 2 warehouse managers now faced a federal investigation for industrial equipment sabotage endangering lives. At home, Malik received a summer scholarship to a STEM program for African American students funded by LoneStar. Holding the letter, he looked at his mother with a bright grin. "Told you, you won." That evening, Talia appeared live on Houston's KHTX television. The host asked, "How does it feel to take down your rivals?" Talia smiled slightly. "I didn't come to take anyone down. I came to rebuild a fairer system, so no one gets buried by prejudice or misplaced power." The broadcast cut to footage of offshore rig number 7 roaring to life amid cheers. In that sound, Talia heard an echo of an old promise to Derek that no one else would have to pay the price he did. Outside, Houston was still hot and humid, but inside Talia, a new chapter had begun not just for her, but for everyone who had been underestimated yet quietly held onto their skill and dignity.